arrived, and which is normal. And people were curious to find out who would do this. Who would target police officers? Who would target 3 police officers? And I'm talking about the minute the news break on social media. Speculations were most I can talk about is what I thought and what many people like me thought. Or this could have been organized by, this have been done by organized crime, the underworld, which makes sense. This is something that the underworld will do, target police officers. We are outraged. When that was, why do we think that in the Gambia? We knew what was present in the Gambia then. Every other week is a ton of cocaine or 3 tons of cocaine. And we know these tons of cocaine do come with crime. They have to be protected and orders. This was one that came out. Straight away. Nobody suspected anybody. Nobody suspected any person. Nobody suspected any organization apart from organized crime. Because we did not believe that any civilized organization, any independent institutions would commit such a crime. This was the point of the narrative. Let's move on. That would change. I'll come to that when it changed. When our thoughts started to change. What changed that thought, will come to that. The scene of the crime. What we have today, and it's the 24 hours of reporting. And this is why it's dangerous for the government to put in the media bill. I'm just putting this there for Gambians to think about this. Because the most credible information, if this investigation is to be determined, would have come from the public. Would have come from the public. If people remember, the minute the crime happened, they were live reporting. They were live reporting at the scene of the crime. Before the state brings out their information, shared information, the witnesses, people who were at the scene of the crime, started to report what they have witnessed. And I can tell you, if you want facts, those are the information you would have to rely on to determine orders. It's interesting that these facts did not come through the court, and we'll get to that. There are so many reporting of what happened, what they have saw. The suspect, they have seen the suspect. They have identified the suspect. They have profiled the suspect. What the suspect wore, the height of the suspect, the structure of the suspect, which did not match Usenu at all. Which did not match Usenu at all. To be frank, and they pointed to a vehicle, a Mercedes-Benz, white Mercedes-Benz. And allegations were made that that Benz had something to play, or the suspect came out from that Benz. That was reported by the bystanders. But we know this thing did not come through the courts. That's why we are doing a review to remind people what have transpired. Why this is important? The witnesses' narratives were completely different from what we later had in the courts, from what we later had from the government spokespersons, what we later had from the police and the national security advisors. Completely, utterly different. And we had a problem with that. When we reported the case, and some of us were very objective, based on our experience, based on our independence, all we wanted to see that the crime was solved and the people responsible were arrested. We were not looking. We are looking at the evidence. We are looking at the information available. And that's what we were dealing with. But we were using our experience to digest it and give a narrative. And I remember some people were skeptic, thinking, oh, Ben doesn't like Barrow, Ben doesn't like the government, which is a lie. I did not dislike them. I dislike what they do. I support the government when they are right. And I give an example where while states have to be held accountable. And that example was the case of Gildando in the United Kingdom, when a crime reporter, very famous crime reporter called Gildando was assassinated. And within seconds, a local person was arrested called Barry George. When Barry George was arrested, the public have their doubts because the crime that was committed did not match the profile of the person arrested. Barry George was someone who was kind of not really, how to call it, he was autistic in a sense, and he was underdeveloped in a sense, and many other things. And he was a weird person, and he was arrested. And guess what? The police went to the extent of making the crime fit Barry George. They put in a narrative, they presented forensics and everything to the courts, and Barry George was sentenced. This is the interesting about justice. People did not relent. People were not convinced. An appeal was made. And the case was reopened and reinvestigated. Guess what? Barry George was cleared of the crime because of all what the police have presented was questionable. If it can happen in a mature democracy, if it can happen in a more advanced society, what do you think of a country that is coming out from a dictatorship? What do you think of that? We have our doubts. Still, that crime is not solved. We gave these examples to try to convince the people, look, let's have an open mind. Let's look at the facts, and we are vindicated today. We don't like to be vindicated because we advocate to avoid issues happening. We don't want issues to happen. Now, the reporting of the crime by the state started to shape narrative and change narrative for many people. For many people, especially the victims, Usenu and his sister and his family. But we'll get to that. For some people who were happy with the narrative coming from the state. And that narrative was given by the state spokesperson, Ibrahima Sankare. This was merely 24 hours after the crime was committed. From our observations, from our experience, we looked at it and said, it's impossible. Even the FBI would not come up with a narrative that's solid within 24 hours a crime been committed. Unless if they were the one that committed the crime. It was so much of detail. We straight away went against and said, that's a lie. That's a fabrication. It doesn't add up. I will not take time to go into every detail of what he said, because these are details that very well known. But I'll come to it. The Sankare narrative was debunked. And it was interesting that Sankare, all he did was, without naming a political party, the UDP, was to make the profiles of the crime scenes and everything to fit a crime committed, crime commissioned and by the UDP and committed by an agent of the UDP. We remember saying that the suspect was known, the suspect attended the hearings of Yankuba Dabo, the then chairman of the Bikram Area Council at Banjul. that the suspect worked for the how to call it, worked for the Brikama Area Council, that the culprit and the people that commissioned these things had a meeting. He alluded to a meeting at a mosque, meeting at a motel, and so much of a detail. And I remember a very senior citizen, when I made my rebuttal, who had concerns, who respected me, approached Sankare and said to Sankare, "Oh, I respect Ben, and Ben really said everything that you said could not have happened." And Sankare reassured this senior citizen to say that they have the evidence. It's true. That senior citizen contacted me out of concern for my credibility and said to me, "Be careful." I spoke to Sankare, and Sankare said that they have evidence. I said to the senior citizen that if they ever produce an evidence of his allegations, I put myself before the court. It's a lie. That will never happen, because everything he said doesn't add up. And I have my reasons for that. That's why I say not based on everything that was out there, but based what we know about when crimes committed or forensics and availability and orders. When these things happen, questions were raised. We raised questions. A lot of things were left behind, and I want to come to certain things, because some of these things have came to the courts. But what we find out is, out of all the witnesses who were there, civilian witnesses, independent witnesses, some of them went to the police and gave statements. Witnesses who some of us had live on live programs talked about what they saw, that the suspect was shot, stodgy, and whatever other descriptions. I can't remember all. But the suspect was never a tall person, never a lean person, or whatever. None of those were invited at the courts. But three soldiers were produced as witnesses. Now, we ask ourselves, for a scene of a crime, if your investigations are competent, they are independent, why would you leave behind any other potential witness that could help to solve that crime? Because you need collaboration. You might have evidence from one person, and that evidence might be vital to corroborate the evidence of someone else. Because one witness might see something here, but might not see the other side of the coin, and the other witness seeing this other side of the coin, and those things can be put together and put through the courts. Again, it helps to confirm the information. One witness says this, second witness says the same, third witness says the same. It collaborates. Then if three witnesses, independent witnesses, come forward to volunteer and say that the suspect was a short person, three, that's important. That's important. If a suspect comes out and said something, another suspect come out and said something completely different, it's important to verify, why do they have this? Why did they see it differently? This is if you are objective, if you are competent, if you are independent, if you want to solve a crime. You come out with an open mind. You follow the evidence. You don't make up evidence. You follow it. Evidence through what? Obviously, force is. This is why a scene of crimes are barricaded, so that it will not be disturbed, would not be contaminated. And the people present are straight away put aside an interview at that time where their memories are sharp. They can remember every bit of things, where their emotions are raw, because all these things needed to be analyzed to determine the facts. But what we witnessed in this case, none of these people came through the courts. But 3 soldiers coincidentally happened to be at the scene of the crime. The white vehicle was never mentioned in the case brought before the courts, which was instrumental to determine. They neglected that as a potential evidence to a major point of evidence to was disregarded. Then that's another point that we need to know. Now, let's come to the 3 soldiers. These 3 soldiers came as witnesses and gave a narrative. When they gave their narrative, the investigations, if they were competent, they could have determined the credibility of their statements. You see, if you are investigating, you have to have an open mind. It's not because of you are not looking to hear something that you want to hear. No, you want to hear the facts or what you can be determined as facts. They made their testimony. And again, thank you for Lamin J. Dabo, lawyer Lamin J. Dabo doing a brilliant work. What did we find out? They lied. Now, if 3 state witnesses who are employed by the state, who are security operatives, come to lie against a crime committed against the state, can we just think about that for a moment? Let's think about that for a moment. 2 officers killed, 3rd officer potentially been almost killed. You have 3 soldiers at the scene of the crime, and they lied about what happened. Who are they protecting? Whose interests are they representing? During the course of the investigation, it could have been determined whether they lied or not. Because it's a very important case. Because you should not rule out suspects unless you have a reason to rule them out. The reason that they are there and they have the means to commit that crime because of their background, they should have been, in fact, be treated as a suspect first. This is why if a crime happened in a house and they find someone killed in a house, who do they look for first? The people that have the opportunity, people that might have motive, people that might have access to the person. If you come to the house and found a grown-up man killed, physically murdered, and you find a 2-year-old in the house, would you suspect the 2-year-old? No. Would you ask for the mother of the 2-year-old? Yes. Would you ask for the occupants of that property? Yes. Do you ask for the people who knows the victim? Yes. Do you ask for the people that interacts with the person? Yes. Do you go and check the communication of the person? Who did he speak to? Who does he speak to? Do you find out what business is that person involved in? Do you not do that? To find out who would have interest in seeing this man killed. If you meet the person, people that know this person or have interacted, what do you ask? Would you know any reason why someone would want him killed? Do you know of any reason why would someone want him killed? Do you know of anybody who would want him killed? These are the questions you ask. That's why if you find those 3 soldiers there, just think that you find 3 soldiers, they are your witness. They could have been. I'm not saying they are. They could have been part. You see, crimes are committed in many ways. They could have played a role in committing the crime. Now, if you are an independent investigator, if you are, working for the interests of the state, interests of the people, interests of the police officers who are killed, interests for justice, you should have done a due diligence to make sure you determine, what their presence and everything else, and their statement was collaborated well. This is what the defense did to determine. The statement of these three officers, they said they came from Palmadima, from the beach. They asked for a lift. They were given lift. They came to the Johnson. They dropped off there to connect again for their destinations. And they said, they were hungry. They put together $300. And one of them went to buy these things and two went the other end. Look, you have to be open-minded. Let's think about it. Because what we find out, but now we have the audacity to question this. If they lie, we have to ask what they are hiding. Why do they have a motive to lie? Now, in operations, you have the eyes and ears. Where they serving as the eyes and ears of the operations. Now, if they were serving eyes and ears of the operation, they will have to justify their locations, why they were at different locations. Now, to determine that, it's good to say that we went to buy Afra. That's why two people were around this end. Probably those people were at that end because part of the operation, they have to be at that end. They direct it. And one person went that direction because that person needed to be at that direction. For what? Probably eyes and ears to assist, to make sure the perpetrator of the crime escaped from the scene of the crime. I am not saying this is what happened, but now to help the investigation, these are the things they have to think about. Because why? If their statements were not proven to be a lie, they lied because then we have to find out their interest of the lie, and now that will point them out to be treated as suspects. Why? What Lamin Jedabo did was check out their phone locations. They did not come from the same location. They lied. They did not come from Palmarima. They made up the entire story. All three of them lied. Why would they lie? They must have known something before that crime happened. That's what evident. That's what would transpire here. They have an interest. That's why they lied. Whose interest? Not the interest of justice. Now it was proven they came from different directions. It was proven they were communicating before they got to that direction. That's one point we need to hold on to there. And let me add on to something that did not come on. Through our investigations or our discussions, it transpired that CDS Cham, who was the deputy CDS at the time, lived his location, this residence is located within the scene of the crime or less than 100 meters from the scene of the crime. Why is this important? It's important for two reasons. From information we received. Let me emphasize, from information we received. And why we reference this information, it makes sense. That at 7 p.m. every day, 2 to 3 soldiers would be deployed to the CDS compound and they are armed, obviously, to protect him or his compound. Now tell me, the investigations, why we did not know about the presence of 3 extra soldiers or the failure of their presence. I'll bring why I mean the failure of their presence. We will assume they were present because that's the operational routine. If it failed that day and a crime happened that day, then we'll ask what was avoided for them to be around there when the crime happened. Because we will expect that 3 soldiers armed to protect their, their asset or VIP will have gunshots, 2, 3, and actually people are saying the route taken by the assailant, the person suspect ran towards that compound or around that compound. And the soldiers who are witness said that the man turned around and fired shots again, about 2 or 3. You want to tell me that 3 or 2 soldiers would be around that location with weapons and hear gunshots going and they did not react? I think the investigations need to find out why. But in case, and there's a reason I'm emphasizing in case, because we are not we are sure of the fact that they do have soldiers there, but we are not sure if this night they had soldiers there. But if they don't have soldiers there, we will try to find out why soldiers were not present. Do you know another reason for that is, when the crime happened, the CDS came to the scene of the crime. And the CDS went to the hospital where the lady, Jawo, PC Jawo, was taken to. And if I can remember, don't quote me, would be Nemban. And the CDS, according to reliable source, turned around and said to someone at that moment that this was done by the UDP. That needed to be investigated. Why would the CDS jump to the UDP? But that's not strange, because next day, Sankari came with that narrative. Sankari came with that narrative. Now, the conduct of the 3 soldiers' witness. Let's look at this. Let's look at this. Let's do this first. I am doing this first time to explain. When crime happened, when investigators get to the scene of the crime, what do? They will interview suspects. They will interview bystanders or witnesses. And from that witnesses, they will make a profile. The likely identity of the person. Or the person is tall, or the person is short. The person is slim, or he's stocky. The person is light-skinned, or the person is dark. The person is a white man, or is a black man. If the person speaks, well, what accent? He speaks like a... In the Gambia, I mean, some might say he speaks Wolof, but the Wolof sounds like a Fulama. He speaks Wolof, the Wolof sounds like a Mandinka. He speaks Wolof, these things can be determined. These things are important to identify the suspect. And from this profiling, it's helped for the investigator to find the suspect. And one way of doing that is to kind of sketch the suspect and distribute that. Or know the kind of person to help them kind of person. The other thing is the forensic evidence. The forensics. What is present that can help? In this day and age, the video taken by people, is important. What is important this day and age, the CCTV around that area is important. What is important? The bullets. When you fire, bullets come in around. You know, I mean, sorry to use this. Bullets look like a circumcised man. Sorry to use this, but that's the explanation. You have the tip just as the shape of the man's genitals. That's what goes out to the victim. The casing is the butt. The casing that stays within the gun and comes out of the gun. Because there's a gas present behind the bullet, there's a point. You see a point there. That's where the firing pin knocks. If it knocks it, it ignites an explosion within the chamber. Within that chamber, there's something to hold the empty casing. And the gas present within the chamber force the bullet to go out. Then the mechanism of these things would eject the empty casing. The empty casing, mostly, that's why it can be found. Once you find the empty casing, it tells you the likely weapon used to do this. Now then you can start to find the weapon, kind of weapon you're looking for. These are the forensics. At times, other things might be present that might be used as forensics. Technically, it's zero forensics that came from the scene of the crime. The other forensics are what's done to the victims. The kind of impact and the exit can be determined to correspond the weapon being used. Because you might find empty casing, and you go and look at the victim and find out that this entry and exit, it's not a 5.56, it's not a 2.2, it's a 7.76. Velocity of weapon being used. These are forensics. But now, how can the police fail complete forensics? All these kind of forensics, they fail. Even the eyewitnesses, they fail. Even to put a profile, they fail. Was it incompetence or deliberate? Were they not looking for the right suspect? Have they already invented a suspect in their head? This is a valid question to be asked now. Let's look at a scenario. Let's look at the scenario, and there's a good reason for the scenario. We are still at the crime scene. Because, again, one thing investigators do is they look at scenarios. When you have priorities of evidence by going through the process of evidence collecting and listings, interviewing of witnesses and so on, then look at the scenario. Who would want to do this? I mean, why do they want to do this? Who is capable of doing this? Who is capable of doing it? That's why when I give the example of the person found dead in a house and you find a 2-year-old, you will not think that the 2-year-old, obviously, the 2-year-old would not be able to do it. But who is capable of doing it? The mother is capable of doing it. Is it reasonable to think the mother? Yes, in a relationship, this thing happen. Now, if a crime like that happen, who is capable of doing it? And who would be capable? Let's ask our questions. Paramilitary police officers. That's their right description. 2 male and a female. They had an AK-47, either one AK-47 or 2 or 3, even let's say 1. Now, if anybody, either you are completely nuts, or you might be very good at what you do, or you are reassured because you are working with a team that might know things and you are assured of your safety and your escape. Professionalism. To take a pistol, to go and confront police officers, paramilitary officers that had an AK-47, an automatic rifle. Who would do that? Must be a professional. This is very important to know the profile of the person who will do this when we come to Usenu. Now, this is why you think of why would anyone, another thing is why would anyone target police officers? That's why when the crime happened, if it is Mexico, would you ask? Because we know why people to target police officers. If it's America, would you ask who would have anybody? Many people would target police officers in America because there are grievances against police officers. Is that the case in the Gambia? No, absolutely not. Not yesterday, not today. Not even during the dictatorship. That individuals, citizens would just target police officers. That's why when the crimes happened during the dictatorship, we know it was done by the state. In the Gambia, when it happened, we respected. We had the decency to think that this is not the state. I can tell you that. We thought organized crime. Why? Because of the presence of narco in the country. We thought that first, until the state started to own up to the crime. And I'll explain. Until the state started to own up to the crime. Starting to mess up and making things as they have something to hide. They are not looking for the evidence. They are not looking for the suspects, but they are trying to frame people. If the state start to frame other people, they have an interest. Why the Metropolitan Police framed Barry George? It was because of the suspect. It was a terrorist hit. The suspect was about the Balkans War. They suspected that a Serbian nationalist did the thing, and the state did not want that narrative to get to the people, because they want to keep the popularity of support to the war. It was a state interest in that sense. Now, who would want to do that? Was it at random? What, did someone just have a grudge against the police officers? If you have a grudge against police officers, why would you not go and target? I'm not saying to happen. Why would you have not gone to target police officers in traffic that doesn't carry a weapon? That is easier and assured that you can do it and escape. We know isolated areas that police go and put their checkpoints that they don't have weapons, because they are trying to get something to feed themselves. Why not go and target them? We'll come to that answer. There are so many. Why would you not do that? Why would you risk an individual? Risk to go to a crowded area and find paramilitary officers with a weapon, AK-47, more sophisticated than your pistol, to attack them. First, yourself, you should be very confident to carry that weapon and able to use that weapon diligently. Pistols are not a firearm for average soldiers. Many soldiers have served till they finish. They have not fired a pistol. I can tell you that. The personal weapon for soldiers, it's a rifle. Every nation have their national rifle. Some are M16. Most African countries, third world countries, are AK-47 because of their facility, affordability and orders. They have their personal weapons. Some, not only your personal weapon, you might have access to different weapons due to training and other stuff. You might fire an SLR, you might fire all the rifles. But your personal issued weapon, it's the one dedicated to you, the one you do your AP, I forgot this annual weapon test. That's where you zero, that's one you carry, that's when you pick when you are needed to do duties. Now, if for you to go and use a pistol, you must be trained well and be very assured of using the pistol to confront 3 paramilitary officers that carry a weapon and an AK-47. You see, this would have, this classification or profiling would have helped to narrow the suspect we're looking for. Again, it's not only that you are good in that thing, you are alone. You will not be able to do that alone. You will need a team. What I call a team. You need team to do what? To be your eyes and ears. To watch out for you. To make sure they are there to protect you. If you are to be arrested or whatever something goes, they will take you out of there. They will take you out of there. Then this takes a team to do. Then from the nature of the crime, people would start to, the police investigations, information from the start to look at more than one person. Because why, this is not at random. But it's very interesting to note. What is interesting to note is something that the judge have asked. What first happened is they said this soldier, I think this is not picked up in the courts for about technicalities. The soldier said he had the gunshot, he turned around, and he saw one police officer fall. But he witnessed the second one. And he witnessed the third one. And the other two witnessed the second one, they witnessed the third one. They did not say that they seen they watched the first firing. They had the firing, they turned around to the location where the police were. They were aware that there were police officers there. They were aware that there were police officers armed. This is important. In crime scenes or in anything, if I am in my house now, because my familiarity of the house, if something happened here, my reaction would be different from someone who just walked into my house. Because they are not familiar with my house. They are not familiar with the layout. If something just happened, the reaction will be completely different from mine. Mine will be more calculated, more logical. Regardless of what have transpired. Now, let's come to this. That's why I said for them, they said they know that the police officers were there. When they had this thing, they looked at the direction of the police officers. They saw one fallen down, then the second, then the lady third. This is interesting to know, and I'll come to it. But what was their action? These are soldiers. But I can tell you something. Being soldiers, you can say, depends your training. Let's say this correctly. It depends on your training. Soldiers are of different grades because of their experience and training. Some soldiers can have only had gunshots been fired away from them. They have never had the experience of gunshots fired towards them. This is one thing I don't know now whether it's happening. During the First Republic, part of our professional training, we used to have live round firing. This live round firing, what it means is we used to go to Canada and other sort of exercises where things would be shot around us for us to get used to that that feeling or have that experience. And we used to do a lot of different ambushes, which is live round ambushes, which gives you certain realities, especially in the night, and all those kind of things. I mean, I think they might have done a lot of things similar. I don't know exactly what they do now. I don't know but one of them said he's a weapon expert. He might have stayed long to be a training weapons and stuff like that. You must be good to do that. Now, even civilians, I can tell you, human beings are human beings. Some people are not soldiers, but they have it in them. When something happens, they react in a certain way. If something happens, regardless of your experience, three things are expected of you. One, you hear it and you react. You jump into it. It's a human instinct to do. Two, you get frightened, you get frozen. You get nervous and just frozen. You can't do anything, you just watch. Three, you take up and leave. Flight. Flight. Three. Interesting that all three soldiers who were witness, they were not frozen, they did not run away. They ran towards the suspect. Then they were not scared. Why were they not scared? Is it because they were soldiers? Why were they not scared? Is it because they know what was happening? Is it because they were part of was happening? I'll come to it. Is it because they were part of what was happening? Their role was to chase, to make sure they protect the assailant, the suspect. No one catches the suspect. That's why they did that straight away. Because they were there. If they were not scared and got frozen, they were not scared and run away. But they were in control due to their experience or whatever it is. Why did they not pick up the weapon? All three of them knew that the police officers had a weapon. Is it one or two or whatever? They would all have to jump on to the weapon because they have pirate knowledge. That's why I use this thing. If something happened in my house, I have a better understanding of my house, and someone just walked into my house to react. Why didn't they pick up that weapon? And the judge did ask that question. Why did they not pick up? None of them thought about picking the weapon, and the AK-47 would have killed the person or stopped him. But none of them did that. Is that a coincidence? That none of them thought of, because they were not scared. They were in control. And one of them said he was scared. That's why, no, if you are scared, you will not run behind the guy who have the weapon. You were in control. What I'm asking now, and these are the things we need to ask, did they run behind the suspect to protect the suspect? Make sure he was not be arrested. Was that part of their role? Eyes, ears, and protection. Because as I said, one person would not just do that operation. And as we go, we tell whatever transpired was not one person doing it. Now, why did I say this? That the person did not randomly target three PI officers or police officers for that matter. Because he had grievance. This is about scenarios we're looking at. Because if you have grievance with police officers, there are so many weak areas you can go and do it without any risk. One of the police officers was Pate Jallo. Someone called Pate Jallo. The minute I heard that name, and Sankare came with this UDP conspiracy, I said, that's it, that's it, that's it, that's it. This was a false flag operation. False flag operation. Why? Let's imagine this. First, about 4 weeks to 6 weeks, around that time, a false flag operation was done in Senegal against Pastef. The Interior Ministry, with their agents, took some, I say this foreigners, because they selected weak witnesses. What they find out from the investigation, that all the people who were said to be victims in the bus were foreigners who could have been easily coerced to say what the state wanted them to say. They brought a bus in public and lit the bus and rescued the people from the bus and accused Pastef of attacking a public bus with civilians. We are such, and they use that, to use a degree to ban Pastef. Now, this is what happened. We know these people follow similar things. Now, a week or so before, incident happened in Banjul, where, in fact, I think it's Ramu Sabali was one of the victims who, by then he was with the UDP. UDP went to the courts for Yankuba Dabo, support Yankuba Dabo. And during that presence there, as usual, there was a fracas between the police and the UDP. And some were malhandled, beaten or whatever the case. And the person in charge of the operation was Commander, let me emphasize, Commander Pate Jallo. And I can remember, as usual, Loudmouths would do that. Some loudmouths from the UDP came out on, oh, we'll pay back, we'll do this, we'll do this. We know most of those people are just saying it. They have no means of paying back, or they were not even present, or even if it was, they will not be present. People will do things they don't say. We had that. And some people were naming Pate Jalot, some people put his picture up and everything else. Now, is this a coincidence that the 3 officers sent for duty that day, one of them was Pate Jalot? And still, according to the testimony, and still, it seems Pate Jalot, the young officer, it's not the one who was in charge of the operation in Banjul, was shot first. Now, is it possible? I'm asking a question because it needs now to be asked. We need to keep this investigation. Is it possible that the entire operation was, as stupid as it may be, you don't try to be intelligent in thinking what this regime does? Because everything that transpired would tell you that no intelligent, decent person would have conducted these investigations and took it to court. If you want to take yourself in their place, then you would forget it. That's not their mindset. You have to understand their mindset, how stupid they are. Because most of these people operated under a dictatorship when things can be done in any way and how. We remember the way they did the independence, burning of the independence, the attack of Babukar Gay, the attack of Daida Haidara, and all these things, knowing that it would point to them because it was the control they had. Now they still have that mindset, thinking that they have control. They know that people are free now. People fought for their freedom. People fought their democracy. They will express themselves and they will stand up. We've seen the suppression they did trying to divert this case. Now, would it be said that the assailant, the suspect, was there to shoot at Pate Jalot, at knee length, whatever, and the soldiers were there, 3 witness soldiers were there to make him escape. Then Pate has been targeted at the scene of the crime, and that Pate Jalot was threatened by the UDP. They can use that and accuse Yankuba Dabo, accuse the UDP for commissioning a crime which is an act of terrorism. Why would I say that? As I said at the beginning, myself and many others were thinking this was done by organized crime. We did not think that the government would lack decency to think of something like this. Until Sankare came out and presented a scenario, presented a narrative contrary to the evidence that have transpired. They must, for Sankare to say something, which he said came from the police, for the police to look at the investigations and give a preliminary report. A preliminary report cannot be that exclusive, comprehensive. That's why I knew the comprehensiveness. This is a fake. Preliminary reports are not comprehensive. That's why they are called preliminary. With the instance, what you have gathered, and to be very careful, this is what you want to put out there because of you are not sure of certain things. But again, you don't want to give too much. That's what preliminary reports are. Purpose of them. But it will help the investigation when it goes out there. You have to be careful and give too much that your investigation will be undermined. But again, you need to do it there to keep the public confidence and to try to get something to come out from the public, for them to support the investigations. When Sankare did that, now, Sankare referenced the court incident. Oh, the suspect was at the court case of Yankuba Dabo. And in fact, they started to distribute a picture. Let's Gambians think about that. A picture that looks like Usenu was already presented as someone who was not Usenu, a tall guy was presented. A tall guy was presented and said that he works as a security for BEC. Now they are already trying to tie a narrative to what have happened. He said that the person who was paid, they know how much was paid, or they stuff like that. The people that commission the crime. Where they met, the motel they met, the mosque they met, they even have to add mosque to give it the grievance of terrorism, because in the Gambian mindset or people's mindset now, terrorism would have to have a dose of Muslim. They have to meet at the mosque to pray to their God to go and commit a horrible crime. This was it. Now, would it not make sense to ask, was this a false flag that went wrong? Why would it be a false flag that went wrong? That's why I said the stupidity of these people, their indecency, should not make you rule out. Because their indecency have been proven in the way they handle the investigation. If they have not committed the crime, the way have they conducted the investigation have pointed to their failure. Not that failure that they have something to protect. Conflict of interest. Now, they have never thought about the reaction from the police officers. They have just assumed, and in operations we don't assume, we make so. I lead my men, I brief my men, I deliberate on actions that I am guaranteed. They are tactical, and this is these things that can go. We will look at all scenarios and plan towards achieving and mitigate the risk. I would not send an individual to confront three different individuals, especially they having a weapon, a more superior weapon, and assume that if I shot at one, the two would run away. But do you know that's a Gambian mindset? At policy, I don't want to bring 30th December, but that's one mindset they had. That once they fire, the rest will run away. And this is coming from professional people. That's why we, in intelligence, we are taught to understand mindsets. But that's a wrong. In an operation, you don't take for granted. You don't underestimate. We are taught not to underestimate. What you do is what? This is why when we do our appraisals, if we are to confront a section, 8 to 12, 14, 15, we make sure we come with a platoon. Because we don't underestimate that section. When we evaluate a section, we know that they have one rocket launcher. They have one GPMG. They had 8 riflemen or 10 riflemen. We make sure we have superior. We have 3 to 4 support weapons. We have 3 to 4 these things. We can suppress them. We need to suppress them. That's why we will not be sent to an operation to assume that if we fire, they will scatter. No. That's not a reaction that we will expect. But in these people, because if you consume a criminal mindset, I don't want to go into religion, but it's just like the gods, Allah would just not allow you to do things perfectly. Perfectly, Allah would not allow it. But if you consume yourself to be righteous, try to do righteous, even if you're not capable, Allah protects you to come out right. Because when they do these things, it's not the entire police that we're part of it. It's not even the entire command that we're part of it. It's a core element. That's why when you talk about it, we're not blaming the entire police. Because when the investigation started, someone said to me, within them, that my brother, if this come out, the police might riot. If the facts come out. He said, if the facts come out, the police might riot. I said to you, telling me the police are responding. He said, yes. Though he didn't give me the details, but he believed that they were responsible. And he works within their intelligence. Now, they assume that if they shot party, that would be enough. And the guy can bolt out, and the three soldiers who position themselves conveniently by buying the Afra, giving the narrative of buying Afra. One person here, two people there. They have to give that narrative. That if you bolt out this way, the two will protect him. If you bolt out that way, one will protect him, follow him, make sure the crowd will not get him. Probably that's what happened. Because within 24 hours or 24 hours, a comprehensive narrative was given by Sankare. And everything point to UDP. This is what is a false flag, and they wanted UDP in. Now, when these facts did not come to the courts, it went on. The public, Sankare gives the statement to the public, and not only Sankare. We have to understand, people blaming Sankare. Yes, he's a mouthpiece. But Sankare received this. And for Sankare to receive that, let me give you something. How do information come, from the mouthpiece? If it is right information, it comes from technicians. It comes from field officers, from investigators, that assets and everything else, putting it together. Supervisors are there. Filter it, analyze it. And before it gets to where the IGP would sign on it and pass it on to Sankare to say it, then it's an institutional document. It's an institutional statement. Now, if an entire, you see, you might have a deviated account, but the entire statement was wrong. It did not happen. The guy, there's no suspect that worked for the council, Brikama Area Council. There's nobody been known to be paid. They have not recovered any funds. There's no evidence of people surveillance at the Juma, Jaka. There's no plan that they discover that other PIU officers or other officers are going to be attacked. It's a terrorism act. None of those things happen. But guess what? That wasn't the end of it. It was reinforced. The cabinet, security cabinet. The interior minister then, I know he's silenced now. He still have to be held accountable. He was the one at the Minister of Interior, Siaka Sonko, who had supervised the ministry at that time. Yeah, Mr. C, I said they might not think of it's going to kill the person, but when they attacked or when they shot one officer, they did not run away. They confront him. For him to save himself, the assailant, he had to shoot again. This is the second shot that killed the first one. Then the third one still came up. He had to shoot. And again, from the statement of the witnesses, the police, if a female officer even charged, she did not run away. She charged, he have to shoot him to protect himself. For them, they are just being evil. They never thought about that this might be the reaction. They thought the reaction would be shot and run away. But why are we saying that this might be the reason is the statements coming from the state? They fabricated an entire statement first by giving it to the spokesperson to brief the nation that this happened, this transpired, and UDP was in charge. Why would they do that? Why would they do that? When nothing at present at the scene of the crime pointed to, as evidence pointed to UDP or the narrative they give. It was premeditated. And again, why was it premeditated? The issue about having a Pate Jallo who, with name, they would have used as or the assailant have a mistaken identity. Instead of Commander Pate Jallo, they went and got the wrong Pate Jallo. That's another point we are raising here. And the third point is to try to pinpoint a person within the entourage of Yankuba Dabo at the courts. Because they put out the picture. saying that this guy there, the guy with the coverage was the guy that did it. And interesting enough, I'll come to that. That guy kind of looked like Usenu. The height and some other characteristics. We'll come to that. Now, the cabinet reinforced this statement. When did they know that they lied? Because they knew they lied. Police knew they lied. The IGP knew that the statement put out there was a lie. But they met with the president. The president, and they did a cabinet briefing which was televised. The interior minister was there. The SIS DG would have been there. I can't remember of it. The IGP was there, or deputy IGP, or whoever was president, the things was there. And the security advisor was there and others. And guys, the office of the security advisor is not a single person. It's an entire office. It's got a secretariat of intelligence. He collaborates all the intelligence, state intelligence, from the state security services to the police to the customs and everything that filtered through to the report before it gets to the president would have to go to the office of the national security. Then that's a big office. The reason you create that is to control. Put in check and balances. You don't just let the SIS put information to the president. You bring out another competent body to do that. Now, the president sat there. They said it's an act of terrorism. They already divined what happened without knowing what happened. Act of terrorism. It's against the state. Against this, against that. And from their narrative, they were trying to enforce what Sankara have said. And from then, that's where a ransom was announced. $1 million. And we'll come to that ransom. Very important point to note down the line. We'll come to that ransom. Ransom was announced. Now, that's a second layer of giving a false narrative by cabinet. Cabinet might say that, okay, we were misled by the police as well, just as they misled our spokesperson, president's spokesperson. Usenu come into the frame. Now, some people ask very intelligent question. Oh, out of all of Gambia, why then Usenu was picked? It's a very intelligent question. The only thing it sounds intelligent is because you don't have the answers. If you had the answers, you would not ask. Because Usenu was known to the police. That was an established fact. This is why I said Usenu came to the frame. Because Usenu lookalike was already identified by the state agents, putting a picture out there saying that that person who was in the entourage, part of the entourage of Yankuba Dabo, was the perpetrator of the crime. Before I go in fact, 2 people were arrested. First, who were known to be UDP, who were known to make comments on social media. One of them from Bakau. I think he's called Imam. 2 people were arrested because of their statement on social media, and obviously what Sankara said, they kind of one thing that they might fit the profile. Now, why Usenu came to the frame? Usenu was known to the police. Why Usenu was known to the police? Not that because a criminal, no. Usenu had a dispute with a girlfriend who owns a property that Usenu was managing as a concierge, collecting maintenance and stuff like that. They might have finance and dispute and stuff like that. And this case, a police officer got involved, Saul. And this Saul name have to be very watch. And before this crime happened, Usenu was dealing with the police on 2 levels. One, because he was having a dispute with a girlfriend and about this property and whatever surrounds it. And we know as a fact, in most cases when this happened, the police would want to side with the person who have influence, and this was the owner of the property. And from Usenu's narrative, Usenu thought that Shaw was kind of push him out. To kind of probably befriend the friend and benefit from whatever proceeds or whatever it was. But secondly, Usenu was involved in an entrapment. He was on social media and got contacted by someone he thought was a woman, and he had done something, and his image was captured, and now this person was threatening to distribute his image, and which is traumatizing for him. And I want people to remember this. Even time Usenu was forced video, Usenu was looking at someone that lost his head. And people who work with people with trauma will tell you. If you look at Usenu at that time, he was not mentally capable. You see Usenu the way he was, and after the effect of the trauma, even he was still going on, but resting and everything else, when he appeared in court, how coherent he was, how intelligent he came across. But at that moment, he was like a baby. He was incapable. He was incapable. He was looking shattered. He was looking tired. And he was murmuring as someone out of his head. This is important to note. Usenu, this is why Usenu came to the frame. Now, based on something happens with intelligence. Some of things you might not know how it's done. I can tell you, intelligence do make people do certain things without them realizing that they made them do it. This is part of what they call to win confidence and influence. Winning someone's confidence and influence them. They will not realize that you are making them do things you want them to do. And in all these kind of cases, this happen. And don't think that Gambian intelligence don't know how to do this. These are the basics of intelligence. Basics. You have to win intelligence. This is where someone will come to your wife. And knowing that through your wife, they can win their confidence. They know that if they come to you directly, you will not trust them, you will not take it. But they might put something to your wife and make sure that your wife will present it as their idea or whatever it is. Then you trust your wife, you have confidence in your wife, your wife wins your confidence, and your wife makes you do it. Your wife will tell you, you need to leave tonight. And your wife did not, even the best one is, your wife might not even know where the information comes from. You might go through an intermediary to your wife, someone else who have confidence in your wife, and say, man, they got that information. And because of the love of your wife or the pressure that will come for your wife can easily win your confidence. I mean, gainal, danga in the fitna, demal rek yo demal. And get them. But you would not know the intelligence made you to go so that they can get you where they want you. I'm not saying this is what happened. I'm just showing you the possibilities of what happened. Because of the police officer's involvement with Usenu, prior to what have happened, they were involved with him. They know his vulnerabilities and everything. Now, the interesting thing, the time the ransom was announced, they are desperately looking for a suspect. Someone to fit the bill. They were not looking for the suspect. They were looking for someone to fit the bill. And I'll tell you why. Now, the cards have started to fall down. Now, it's not fitting the narrative that UDP does it. They did it. Now they want a narrative. It might just have happened because of the same police who are involved in investigations, intelligence and everything, that they were involved with Usenu, and Usenu would be a prime good one to use. And they know the state of Usenu's mind at that time, they can use it. And somewhere, I don't want to reference it, but somewhere, Usenu have said some certain things that he was not in control. He could have been influenced then. without knowing that he was influenced to take the decisions, even to go to customers. Because I was told to go and look for a marab. Unless you review this properly, have very close, you cannot determine some of these things. But if you look at very close, because that was not the work of the defense. Now, this is what led Usenu to Jululu. We have that narrative, Usenu, how he contacted his sister and went to Jululu. Interesting enough, Mama Jabi. Now, this is where the Mama Jabi things come in. This is why, again, Mama Jabi was linked to the police that knew Usenu. Mama Jabi was no stranger to the environment of Usenu. Mama Jabi and the police were cahoot. In fact, they knew each other. Now, what led Usenu to Mama Jabi itself? You see, Usenu did not know Mama Jabi, but when he got to Jululu, do we know? We might not know what tap they have on him until he's in Jululu and to direct him to Mama Jabi. And that's where the entrapment would have happened. Because before Usenu was arrested, I tell you, information leaked to us that they are going to arrest someone soon. I can tell you that. At that time, we thought, yeah, probably they had elites. But not knowing that they were already working on someone. Or someone they identify someone. And the identity started to come out. And the person said to me, in fact, that person is UDP. And he's a Mandinka. I tell you that. He's a UDP, he's a Mandinka. Then the details came out. Usenu Bojang. People like me, I did not release it. Usenu Bojang's name came out before the Mama Jabi this thing. They started to label him. Mama Jabi knew Mama Jabi was part of a plot to entrap Usenu. And I'll prove that. We all knew the minute Usenu get to Jululu, he was directed to Mama Jabi. What's the coincidence? That day, Mama Jabi, prior to that day, Mama Jabi find himself in Jululu. And ready and sad and ready to be a marabu. That day. You think that was a coincidence? Days before Mama Jabi was in Makunda. He was around the president's family. He was known to them. You think all these things are just coincidence? Now, when Usenu got there, what happened? Tell me now. Usenu got there, nothing to do with the police. Usenu was talking about my girlfriend, they destroying me, my whatever it is, confusely, not even coherent, just like someone dozed, dropped up because of this depression and everything. And Mama Jabi had a recording to record Usenu. This is where it's interesting. But remember, as I said, the name came out before the recording and everything. Did a recording. And it transpired. You see, that's why Mama Jabi did not want his phone to be checked. Transpired, Mama Jabi contacted Barrow's family, not the police, when Usenu arrived. And contacted another officer connected to President Barrow's nephew. Something Kamara or something like that. You see, it was not the line of investigation we thought it is. Now this is linked to the ransom. Mama Jabi knew about the ransom. He was there and it was coordinated. We'll come to the ransom again. Now, this is where we have to check it. Between the time Mama Jabi recorded Usenu, the recording was doctored. Mama Jabi did not have the capacity then. Probably now he's savvy. But even I don't think now he can doct a recording. Who doctored the recording? Not Mama Jabi. People who work with Mama Jabi. And who are those people if not the police? And that was released, leaked, to convince. And some Gambians were convinced straight away. I have people telling me, oh, Ben, gis nga luñ la doon wax. Manelen, are you people well? Did you listen to this? Did you, because they don't understand how these things are done. You listen to, you think does this make sense? And the entire recording, does it make sense? And when people came out and started to attack the recording and said, oh no, this is doctored. Usenu is saying something completely different. Mama Jabi is butting in at the right place to cover what Usenu was saying that makes Usenu to be innocent and trying to make Usenu guilty. Yeah, Italy police will fire or something like that. Usenu denying and everything else. Who recorded, who doctored the tape? Who doctored the tape? The investigators should have checked that. Again, in investigation, if someone reported or given the information, that person is important in the delivery of that evidence, because that person will be needed to testify or to make sure that evidence they handed over you have to check the credibility of that person. The investigators should have checked the credibility of that person. And Mama Jabi would not have passed. First, when the police realized that this evidence was doctored, why did police not find out whose interest was it to do this? Thank you, Baros Kozi Musa Kamara. Did Mama Jabi and other people did it in order to get the ransom? Because for the police, your interest is the facts. You are not trying to paint someone innocent. To be disregarded. When the police got the recording and they find out that the recording was not good, it should not have stopped there. They should have found out why the recording was doctored. Is someone trying to interfere with police investigation? Is someone trying to get a ransom from the police for a crime that was not for something that person did not commit? But because of the police interest was not for a fact. It's not to catch the person who did it. That's why I asked, why that's not the police interest? Why it was their interest to look for a wrong person and frame that person? Because that was framing. The evidence was not right. This is the reason why the police make sure the evidence did not get to the court. Because they know that evidence would have exaggerated the person they took to the courts. Then that's another conflict of interest. That's why I said, if the police were interested in getting the wrong person, are the police then protecting someone? This is why we are pointing to them. I am pointing to them. But Mama Jabi did not dock that. I can tell you from analysis I base it. I was not with that. Mama Jabi was not the one who recorded it and able to manipulate the recording to do that. No. It's either someone else with Mama Jabi working to get a ransom, or the police did it themselves in order to win the public and to incarcerate someone innocent. That's another point of getting Usenu entrapped. Now, let's look at the payment. Rewards are given in two. If I promise that I've lost my watch, the watch might cost £1,000 with sentimental values. Probably I got it from my wife or my son, or I inherited it from my father. It's worth more than the £1,000. I want to recover this sentimental value. But I know it's not a sentimental value to someone else. It's just a watch. Probably it cost me £1,000. But to someone else now, this watch is £500. Now, if I said that if anyone found this watch and safe return to me, I'll pay them £500. What am I doing? I'm giving an incentive to receive back something of sentimental value. It's not the watch cost of 500 these things. I could just say 500, let me just go and buy another watch because this watch now is 500. No, that is more valuable. Now, if someone turned around and said to me, oh, I saw the watch you left at the prayer place when you were doing your ablution, and now you have to pay me the £500. You did not find my watch because you have not reunited me with my watch. That's where I am going somewhere with this. Now, if someone was killed, in this case, police officers were killed, let's admit that the president was outraged and even did not make it clear as if it was a state giving out a reward for catching the suspect. If rewards are paid in any civilized country or legally, is when the crime is resolved. Just as the example I gave, you pay for the watch being reunited to you. Now, if in this case of that someone killed the police officers, you are not paying because someone have identified a suspect. He is a suspect. It's not proven that he have killed the police officers. Do you know when you pay for that? When your information have lead to conviction of a suspect, then they can rightly be paid for that. Then why did the government pay Mama not knowing that Usenu was the suspect? Why did they pay? Why did they pay? Guy, I'm holding on my phone because I didn't want to do this on laptop. I would have taken longer. I'm taking longer than I intended. That's why I'm still shaking, because I'm holding onto my phone. Now, why did they pay? Because of they paid someone that they contracted to lie as a witness. That's what they paid for. They did not honestly they did not honestly got someone who came out from the public, who is independent, who have helped to identify this thing. Mama was in it. Mama was in it. The president's family was in it. Korka was in it. The camera guy was in it. The police officer, I cannot remember the name of the police officer, it's Shaw or somebody else, who was dealing with Usenu. In the case of the nudity, in the case of the conflict with the girlfriend, was in it. These are the people that framed Usenu. And these are the people that led Usenu to Julurong. These are the people that framed Usenu to be in the midst with Mama Jabi. Usenu was already controlled by then through intelligence. We'll come to it. Let's come to the other point. The arrest of Usenu and the investigation itself. Usenu's profile did not even fit the person that have committed the crime. As I said, if we follow the due procedures in investigation, the scene of the crime, one does is profiling, forensic profiling, and obviously part of it is gathering of evidence, which is what the witnesses, the forensics from CCTVs, cameras, people's videos, and people's statements, and so on. None of those were presented. CCTV was not presented. People's video were not presented. People's views, people who were present, witnesses, they are not presented. But they presented 3 witnesses that were presented now who looks like part of the people that committed that crime. They lied about how they got there. They lied about all that stuff. And their reactions or purposes did not fit well. And one thing I identified was profiling. What profiling? The look of the suspect. How tall, how short, how thin, how big they were. What skin type they have, what if they spoke, what accent they have, what language they spoke, stuff like that. If they left the scene of the crime, how they left the scene of the crime, they left on a bicycle, on a motorbike, in a car, or they ran, when they ran, what direction, or they drive away, what direction. These are the things that you use to build a profile. And people help the investigation. The second part of the profile is from the forensics. When you do forensics, it tells you the character of the person capable. That's why police will come to our side and look at it and say, this person have done it before. This is similar to the one done last year or last 2 months. This is the one that been done 3 times. Listen, because of it match. The forensics are telling them. It's the same way it was conducted there and there. Try to see if these 3 are linked to the same person. How hideous the crime is this, whoever is capable of doing this might have this background. The profiling. Usenu did not fit any of this. How can the police get that wrong? Completely. But there's more, which the judge have raised. Now, because from these witnesses that were present, they said the guy was short. It's a short guy. And I can tell you for Usenu's height, I am about 6'1". And in the army, in the Gambia army where we have Gambians from different locations, I can tell you always when we stand, I am either the right marker or I am next to the right marker. I'm the left marker. Because I can tell you there will be few people who are taller than me in Gambian society. And Usenu is taller than me. Then Usenu, if it was Usenu's height, nobody would think that it was a short person. That's what I wanted to point out. Someone taller than me cannot be looked at and say, it was a short person. All the eyewitnesses said it was a short person. That alone would have bring doubts. But if you go to forensic again, when even Usenu was arrested, you look at his background, his character, and everything else. Usenu was born and brought up with Bullfoot. When I spoke about these things, my nephews who were born and brought up with Bullfoot, they know Usenu. They tell you he was even timid. He was timid. They can remember him all the time in Bullfoot. They can tell you his character. They can tell you investigation would have proven this. Never had a military background. Never have a violence background. But people were trying to make him fit. And where did that come from? Because of, after they failed to fix UDP into this, they took arrests, they left them, and everything else. Now, they had a victim, Usenu. Now they want Usenu to fit. They had to change the narrative now. The Deputy Inspector General of Police. Guys, one, the spokesperson came and lied, and he said he was represented by police, and the police admitted they gave that information complete lie. Can you believe that? Complete everything lie. The cabinet, security cabinet sat down and lied. And misrepresented, and obviously they will tell you that they relied on what the police told them. Now, let's discount all those lies again. They started at first. The Deputy Inspector General of Police more so, because the Inspector General was not there. If the Inspector General was there, then Inspector General would have said the same thing. Why did I say that? Procedures I'm talking about. More so would not have written that. that would have come from field officers. It have go through the chain of command in investigations. People who would monitor the investigation, supervisors, do the analysis, and write the report that will be presented as a statement to the Inspector General of Police. And now, because of the Inspector General is not present, the Deputy Inspector General of Police would have to read that statement. What did we find out? The entire statement was a lie, fabricated. Again, the statement was made to fit a purpose. The statement was made to fit a purpose. Now, they have got Usenu. Now they wanted to fit Usenu. First, talking about cell towers, busy networks, which was a fabrication. We are not telecoms, but we can tell that we don't have the sophistication. It was impossible. But the minute you talk about grid references, we know it was a lie. We know about grid references. Or we follow this thing from probably the customers. Now, they disregarded the statement of Mama Jabi, how Usenu get to Jululu. Now they're giving us this thing, how Usenu got to Jululu. The Deputy Inspector General of Police. Everything about that became a lie. Can you imagine another lie just to fit how Usenu was arrested? Again, the National Security Advisor, Abu Jain, came and said a lie about Usenu. Again, for Abu Jain, as I said, it's not him, it's an office. He has a secretariat that should be staffed by experienced individuals. Field of intelligence, field of administration, field of all this kind of national security. For him to come out and give a statement, the entire statement to become a lie. Usenu was a rebel. Usenu was with the rebels. It was not even making sense. A rebel trained by the rebels did this and came and did a mission and went and handed over himself to a stranger to save him. He did not go back to the rebel base. For an intelligent person, or supposedly an intelligent person who mans the Office of National Security, read a statement like that, to convince us that his statement was prepared by professionals. But looking at the statement, he had disregarded that statement and asked questions. This does not make sense. There's no evidence here. This is just a narrative. How did he come out with that narrative? Talking about Senegalese rebels. Now, because Usenu identity now is Jola. It's not Mandinka. Usenu now identity as a family voted, probably, likely voted or associated with APRC. Let's change the narrative. Why would the police have an interest not to be brave enough to abandon conspiracies and look at the evidence? Let the evidence lead you to the suspect. Why are you avoiding the evidence that will lead you to the suspect? Why are you protecting the suspect then? You have an interest in protecting the suspect. Why? Why? You see, this is where every bit of what they did was just to conspire to lock up the wrong person. To lock up the wrong person. We saw the suppression of evidence. As we said, the witnesses, CCTV, the vehicle that was present there, and people pointed that someone came out of that vehicle. That's the person who walked across and shot the police officers, ran, and they disregarded all those things. They manufactured witnesses who might have even played a role in this. Why all that? But let's come to the alibi. As the judge have said, if you cannot be in two places at the same time. Alibi is a fundamental part of evidence gathering. When someone is reported and arrested, one of the first questions, where were you when this crime happened? Where were you when the crime happened? That's what they were going to ask you. And investigations, even if they believed that you were at the crime scene, they want to catch you lying. Because it helps to prove their case that you are unreliable and you are a liar, you are a criminal. If you said, I was home, I was with my wife, I was with my kids, they will have to check that. And they will have to put it to you that you are lying. That you are lying. We saw you on CCTV. We saw you here, we saw you there. We have witnesses that saw you at the scene of the crime, who have identified you. None of the people selected independently identified Usenu. Nowadays, your electronic tax, your mobile phone, your credit card, your bank card, your stuff that can determine. You as the witness might say, look, go and look at my phone. And there are ways to look at to make sure that you were with your phone at the same, all the time when the crime was happening. It's not only that, because you can leave your phone at home and go and commit a crime. But no, they would say whether the phone was live. Where was the phone live? It is important. Not only because someone vouched for you, they might say your wife might lie for you. Your daughter or girlfriend might lie for you. But you have all the alibis that would reinforce it. If the police were objective, even after everything I said, that could have determined, before even talking about the alibi, the minute they caught Usenu and they find out that Mama Jabi was not reliable, they could have found out easily and find out that the audio was doctored. And why would anyone doct this audio? Now they will continue. They might disregard the audio and hold the people that doctored the audio for committing a crime, but they'll continue even to say, Usenu, where were you? And if Usenu gave a statement and say that I was here, I was doing this, I was with this person, I was that person, I was this, I was this, they need to go and check that. But they had no interest of doing that. Why do they not have an interest to determine whether the person they have arrested is the person responsible for the crime? But they want to make sure he is, but they don't want to make, they want to just to make sure he committed the crime, but not to make sure that he did not commit the crime. Because he did not admit to committing the crime. And Usenu have alleged torture, mistreatments, and other stuff. Then the interest of the police was not to find the facts, not to find the suspect. What that conflict of interest is, why do they want to protect that? This is what did they have in this? Now, Usenu, alibi was very strong. Not because of when the crime was happening. He was with people who can, verify this. But he was in constant communication well before, hours before, continuously. And the important part of that context is the issues he was complaining about his troubles, the nudity, about the case with his girlfriend, the property and everything. This is what was his head, and he was discussing with a friend who lives in the United Kingdom, a female friend, who vouched that, yes, I was online. We were online. The phone ping was at Bournemouth, at this thing. The person that relieved Usenu, the relief of Usenu, the person who relieved Usenu from the job, the guards testified, yes, Usenu came this time. And when I came in the morning, Usenu was here. The people who sat with, when the crime was reported, people who were listening to the reports, they were there with Usenu. They might say they are my family members, but I said, the electronic. The shop he went to, everything was tight. But no, they went to even the house and tried to, this thing. But guess what? Even tried to get, footwear to match what they think that would have qualified to say that he was it. But that footwear was not even his. And he said, that's not mine. Now, if you want to understand, because of their evil plot, Allah would not let them. They could even have tested this footwear to ensure that it fits Usenu before they take it to trial. But no. They just rush with it. Allah would not let them do something right. But not only that, one of Usenu's phone that would have exonerated Usenu again, they went and reformatted the phone to erase the evidence that would have protected Usenu. Why would you do that if you don't have vested interest in it? And the interest is because you want to put someone who is not, responsible for a crime for that crime. You want to protect someone who committed the crime. This is the fact. Usenu was not present at all. That would have ended the investigation on Usenu. But I can say if they even have done the right, Usenu would not have even been arrested. Now, the role of the Minister of Justice and the Attorney General chambers. You see, this is why we talked about let's separate this office. The Minister of Justice is the lawyer for the government, advisor to the executive, the cabinet, and the president. He should not be responsible for prosecution of criminal cases. That should be an independent bureau. You see, because once the state have an interest, in UK here we have the Crown Prosecution Service. But with even that, just as I say in the case of Jill Dando, politicians are weird animals. What they call the state interest, yes, they come a point they'll say it's a state interest, forgetting that the states are representing people. Anything that harms, anything that's against the people shouldn't be a state interest. But politicians would define it that way so that during their occupants of power, they are protected. With any law, constitution you have, they will try to maneuver that. That's why we try by all means to separate the powers, because it improves and brings about excellence. Now, for the AG chambers, if they have done their due diligence, the police done the investigation break, if they have done their due diligence, they would have not taken this case to the courts. But they were compromised. They were part of the plotting as it went. They were advising the police as it went. I can tell you that that's the only reason they can, that can be explained for this case to reach the courts. Because the police know. But if the AG chambers were not complicit, they knew the threshold for a conviction. In this country, there's something they call the realistically they look at the interest for prosecution. In fact, for the investment priorities and everything, the Crown prosecution would measure that, not the state. Crown prosecution would measure that. And they will advise the police that there's no point going for this case. We have to drop it. Or the case, we have to go back and investigate this. This is not it. But in this case, because they were complicit, because, the Barrow government have become a criminal entity. And the Minister of Justice, being their legal advisor, would be part of it. That's why every case they lose, you find the Minister of Justice at the heart of it. The AG chair, the Auditor General case, I can tell you the same role they played. Every other case, the role they played. This is why they lose in their cases, because they are politically motivated in looking in these cases. They are not they are not working as technocrats. They are not working as independent people. This is where they are failing. It comes to the verdict. Justice Jabi ruled competently. Justice Jabi did not rule based on his opinion. He ruled on point of law. He referenced look at the testimonies. The state witness was not reliable. No forensic. The simple bit, the alibi. The guy cannot. Let's not talk about the sister, because of the core of this case is this thing. If you cannot convict Usenu, then no crime was not committed by the sister, because the sister is blamed of a crime because of the brother was blamed for crime. Now the brother is not responsible for crime, the sister cannot be. This is why I'm not diminishing the suffering of the sister, but the main case here is about Usenu. The crime that was committed was not Usenu. It's been proven. Usenu was not nowhere near. He doesn't have the competency to do it, and everything else pointed to someone else. But the police refused to do that, to look at it. But the government, to prove that the government again have vested interest to lock up the wrong person, the government went angry, did not want to release Usenu. Knowingly, they said ruling, that's a lie. Let's be very careful with this Barrow government. The more we go, the worse they will be. You see, the failure of these justice reforms. When they came in with all the support they have, international donors and everything, they say they're going to Gambianize. It's not xenophobic or anything. Because we knew that one thing that happened during the dictatorship was, in many cases, Gambian-born judges have been doing the right thing, and they've been removed, and mercenary judges have been hired because they know that they're dealing people because they just, you don't have to. If you believe in justice, you have humanity in you. But because of their criminals themselves, it's easier for them. They can commit the crime and leave our jurisdiction. It doesn't affect them. And they are even less qualified to be judges, and what the benefit they have. That's what their motivation was. We have so much of mercenary judges. And not be surprised even to start to have Chief Justice who are foreigners, who are not competent, who are corrupt. I'm not saying something against foreigners. I'm saying corrupt ones who are not competent. Because that's what they had during the Jammeh days. The justice pulse and orders, games and orders. The prosecutors. Now we have the Director of Public Prosecution, Director of Public Litigation. They are all foreigners. You think if they were competent, they would be in the Gambia? They would have looked at this case and take this case as it is. They don't care. They can commit it. It's not their people they're dealing with. But if we are Gambians, I'm not saying Gambians will not have done wrong, but the threshold for them, they will have to think twice in this case. This is why some of these serious cases, a Gambian will not compromise with. But not that. Let me say this clear. I'm not saying that Justice Jabi did this because he's Gambian. No. I believe that Justice Jabi would have done this regardless of where he is. That is who he is. He has proven that during the dictatorship. Look at people's record. You might not agree with some of the things he do, but I can tell you, if you look at legally, you won't have point. Because we are biased at times, we want to see alleged criminals punished. That's how human beings might be. But for a professional, he ruled by point of law. The government don't like it. Even though the government knew, they did not present a legitimate case. That's how dishonest they are. And they want to use the instrument of power and disgrace to those people that came with all the literature, trying to justify, yes, the government, law have the right to arrest people. Nonsense. As people, they think they're more intelligent than people. And some of them, pointing out they have law backgrounds. You think people don't have comprehension? We know what we're talking about rearrest. And shame on you, because even the AG Chambers trying to pull his head out because of his before international donors presenting a prosecutor. That's why he coming out to try to minimize the damage, saying that, yeah, it was wrong. I can tell you, he was part of the plotters who directed the action. He was part of the plotters who directed the action. It's a criminal government. And Dawda Jallow is in the heart of that criminality. And if you want to know how criminal that cabinet is, go and see their wealth since they came into cabinet and now. The Ablai Sanyang interior minister are millionaires. The health minister is a multi-millionaire. The Ablai Sanyang is multi-millionaire. Interior. Go and look at them. Go and look at the finance minister and others. Their wealth. If you assess, if you evaluate their wealth since they came to government and now, you know that they have not earned that legitimately. That's why they will do anything to protect this administration. The government response just proven one thing. They want to convict the wrong person. They are not interested in justice, and they will never deliver this justice. If you ask for this case to be reviewed, I mean the investigation review, you will have you will never have a competent outcome. Just as all the committees reviews we have at Parliament and everywhere else. Where did it end up? The petroleum, everything else, nothing. Nothing came out. Nothing will come out of it because of the head of the fish is Barrow, and he's complicit in this. His family is complicit in this. It's not an allegation. These are facts. We have looked at the evidences, which they avoided, which they suppressed. We have to recognize organized leadership. We have to recognize the activists that supported Gala, stood with Gala. We have to organize, because of the leadership Gala took, the youths of Burfoot. I can tell you, youths of Burfoot, because they know this is their own, he is innocent, they know him. They have to react. And from the leadership of Gala, they reacted. And this is the only reason that stopped Usenu from still being incarcerated. It's not because of they respected the rule of law. One thing we should learn, that Barrow only respect one thing, is when people stand up and make sure justice is delivered. They would never deliver justice. They don't have the capacity to do that. Gala and the youths of Burfoot and the activists that supported the actions to free Usenu and his sister have to be recommended, and we have to learn from this on. This is the only way we can have justice delivered in the country and protect our democracy. Again, this is another point I need to know. You see, my respect for people reduces whenever I see them side, oh, at least Barrow is humble. At least Barrow is, how to call it? Barrow is tolerant. At least Barrow is a Democrat. All three is wrong and it's a lie. And most people saying it, they know it's a lie. They're saying it context of, because of they're dealing with someone they don't like. It's a political posturing. Because what they're saying is not backed by evidence. They know that the evidence is not there. Barrow have been showing his intolerance since he came into power. His arrogance since he came to power, not humbleness. When he attacked Dr. Khalifa Saleh first, that press statement was from Barrow. The system changed one. From there on, when he attacked Dr. Sise and others, when he attacked Mahdi Jobate, at the corrective speech, and we know from there the police targeted Mahdi and charged him, and probably he's still on their so-called suspended bails. Who did that? Is Barrow. And the statement he had made against leaders in that country, and his statements he repeated, and arrogance he has shown to Gambians, claiming to free Gambians, claiming ownership of our freedom and everything else. The disrespect he's shown to our First Republic head of states, ridiculing them, bringing them into disrepute for his so-called development. Statements he made, for aggression against his opponents. We've seen all that. How can you say that he's tolerant? How can you say he's humble? But more so when he attacked the courts and still attacking Usenu, a victim who is freed. And he knew that Usenu did not do it because he knew everything was plotted. He knew he's part of that plot. His family was part of everything he knew. And you think someone who is going to bury, disturb graveyards and do everything is not capable of doing others? And people cannot see Barrow doing this. The naivety of us Gambians. At times we die naivety. Mindset, we might see it as a good thing. That's why we are naive to say, oh, Gambians do rain it. Gambians do definitely, Jamaica in the eye foreigners. And Gambians came and said that they strangled people, with ropes. People that they went and sat with, ate in their houses. People that are related. We had all that. And we still can't do it. That's a hypocrisy. That's a lie. He's not humble. He's corrupt. And corruption is the core of your humanity. Killing people would be nothing to you. Destabilizing nations to protect yourself, individual self, would be nothing to you. Because you're not righteous. Going up there, again, attacking the judge. But Adama Barrow pointing up to, oh, it's Usenu Dabo, his hands are not clean on this. He believes he knows many, I'm not saying he knows Gambians as a whole. He knows many Gambians who are in the environment of debates. And they can easily reduce national interests to Usenu, Dabo, and Adama Barrow. And that's where the level he wants to bring it. People to forget about everything. Let it be about Usenu. And, oh, Usenu is this thing. So that's what he wants to reduce. I am not saying that he's intelligent, because intelligent people will not do what he does. But he's a corny criminal. Adama Barrow is a very corny criminal. That's what he does. People think that he is absolutely without it. He's a corny criminal. That's what he's doing. His hands are not clean, this and that. When if Adam Barrow was a honest person, a Democrat, who respect rule of law, would have respect the court verdicts. What he would have done is ask questions and bring all the people responsible for these investigations, for this case, and hold them to account and to make sure justice is passed. That's what a leader would have done. But if a leader is complicit in that crime committed, one way or the other, or it's of his interest, that's why he behaved the way he behaves. Now, all we have discourse here, that we're way forward. But I can promise you that justice will never come under this government. This is an added reason why we'll need to stop Adama Barrow from that term. And I can tell you, you will see a wash of Adama Barrow. If we mistakenly allow him any way or form for him to, be annulled or whatever you might want to call that he's the third-term president. He's a third-term president. You have witnessed it's going to be worse than anything else we have seen. Not only of corruption, but you will see the human rights records. This is not an isolated case anymore. Once they start committing these things, they'll commit, and they get away with it, they'll continue to commit it. And any government that would come in, this is a case of a century for Gambia. Why a case of a century? Apart from what the colonials have done to us, from the First Republic, I can remember all the criminal cases, major criminal cases that you will look at. And we have done that by looking at this case. We have looked at the Sol Samba case, Matarsa. When Matarsa was a victim, unfortunately, it was this day and time where social media and where you have the likes of Lamin J. able to stand to defend. Usenu would have been a victim. That would have not come out of prison. We know Matar was a victim, and Saul Samba became a victim because Saul did not go there because being a hero or anything, but thinking that he could have resolved because he's his friend. And the state of the PPP knew that it was politicians with their patrons that committed, and they have forced the hands of Matar for that crime to have been committed. We know, but many Gambian will not know this, the hijacking of the foreign exchange at the Gambia airport. Yes, we know of police officers end up building story buildings from it. The wrong people were punished for that crime. The recovery, 1981, when donors came in, one person was victimized. We know how many other people were involved, but they sacrificed one person. They are so, I mean, sort of that. But we know what happened 22 years of the dictatorship. And still, you have seen a prosecution, English guy be selected and everything. It's more of a donor approach than justice. But that will be discussed another day. Thank you very much. It's been a long one. I did not want it to be that long. That's why I use my mobile phone. But yeah, we've been very busy. We'll try and come as much as possible from now on. Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Thank you.